right outside, so come on in, don't be shy. We've got ghosts and UFOs. Brace yourself, get ready for the show. Don't be afraid of the dark, the fun's about to start. Nightmares or tales will inspire. Oh, tonight at the Scaredy Campfire. Have you heard tell of a demon next door? Or maybe a cryptid on the lake shore? There's nothing too strange for us here, so if you're ready, stamp out your fear. Don't be afraid of the dark, the fun's about to start. Nightmares or tales will inspire. Tonight at the Scaredy Campfire. Whoa, whoa.
Welcome back, campers, to episode 63 of the Scaredy Campfires. This final tale for tonight comes from the edges, the places just beyond your vision, where movement flickers and disappears the moment you look directly at it. Some things survive by staying unnoticed. Tonight's story comes from Reddit user u/theseboysinberry19, who grew up in a remote New Hampshire home that harbored a chilling presence. What began as a typical teenage life quickly gave way to terrifying nights, where shadowy figures moved silently through the darkness, and the feeling of being watched became a haunting reality. Even the familiar glow of a TV light wasn't enough to banish the fear that gripped their childhood bedroom. This is 100% a true experience of mine. I'm currently 32. When I was about 13 years old, I lived in a house in the middle of nowhere. When we bought the house, it was a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, 2-story house with a massive unfinished basement and a garage that has the same dimensions as the upper story. My dad and neighbor converted it into a den, a office, 3 small bedrooms, and a 2nd bathroom. 1 bedroom went to me and 1 to my sister, and the 3rd was a spare room. It wasn't too long after renovating that I had a few scary experiences. The most noticeable experience was one night I had fallen asleep in my room. The way it was oriented was the door was in a corner of the room on the left-hand side of the wall, and when you walked in, my desk was immediately to the right, followed by my dresser, and a TV on the dresser, and my bed was across the room in the opposite corner. I remember being completely asleep but being woken up randomly and feeling like I was being watched. I almost always slept facing the wall. My bed was up against, so my back was to the door. I rolled over instinctively and let my eyes adjust. I had no TV on or nightlight, but I did have one of those old DirecTV cable boxes that had a small green light on it. It wasn't enough to illuminate the room, but put out just enough combined with it being on the same wall as the door and about 6 feet from the door that I could see a black shadow standing in my doorway. I could see just well enough that I could see the torso, shoulders, and head. I wasn't immediately scared, though, 'cause that day my mom was teasing me that because I had gotten old enough that I didn't kiss her anymore. She had snuck in the night before and kissed my cheek when I was asleep. So when I saw the shadow initially, I was excited because I was going to wait for her to come up to the bed and jump up to scare the crap out of her. That's not what happened. It stood there for about 10 seconds or so, which I thought was really weird. It then moved into the room the same depth as the desk and stopped. I remembered thinking maybe she heard me roll over and was waiting to see if I was awake or not before moving in for the kiss. It stayed there for what felt like the amount of time that I had seen in the doorway. Then it moved to my left and in front of my desk. I thought this was odd, because if my mum thought I was asleep, why wouldn't she just walk straight up to my bed? That's when I started questioning if it was my mom, or if my dad was coming in to mess with me or something. I remember seeing the shadow close to the green light, and at this point, I was getting a little scared. Then it moved one final time to my left, and I instantly froze in fear because about mid-torso, the green light was still shining. I literally still get chills thinking about it. I felt paralyzed in fear. I went from excited to jump scare my mum to not being able to move. It felt like an eternity, but after what felt like 15 to 30 seconds, I somehow managed to get out of bed so I could turn the light on. The light switch was right next to the door. As I got up out of the bed and walked to the light switch, the shadow turned and walked out of the room. When you would walk out of the room, there was a door immediately to the right that went in the den. I turned the light on as it walked through the doorway, and I immediately followed into the den, and there was no one there. It's an open concept room with a couch, a chair, and old wooden stairs to the upstairs that were very noisy to walk up. I walked in there no more than 2-3 seconds after it did, and no one was there. No sound of anyone going upstairs or anything, just empty and silent. I remember going back to my room and turning my TV on and trying to fall back asleep. I eventually told my parents when they kept insisting on wanting to know why I started leaving my TV on all night when I slept. At that time, my mom was into pagan stuff, so she believed my experience 100%. Now she's hardcore Christian, and if I were to ask her about it, she would just tell me it was the demon. I don't know what it was, but it scared the living hell out of me. I still sleep with the TV on to this day. I set a timer so it turns off after I fall asleep, but I can't fall asleep easy without it being on. Whether the shadow was a restless spirit, a demon, or something else lurking just beyond sight, its impact lingered long after the encounter. For the user, the fear it inspired shaped many nights to come, with the comforting hum of a TV becoming a necessary shield against the dark. In houses like these, some shadows don't fade. They follow, waiting just out of reach where the light barely touches. Tonight's second chilling tale comes from Reddit user u/standarddebate9307, who works security at a hospital with a historic chapel attached, an eerie building steeped in mystery and sealed off after earthquake damage. One late night shift, alone at the main lobby, turns into a spine-tingling encounter as unexplained tapping, shadowy figures, and strange prints suggest that something unseen still lingers in the chapel's quiet halls. So last night and tonight, a couple of areas of asphalt are being slurried, re-tarring the asphalt. Last night was the ER driveway and ambulance bay. Because of this, ambulances were required to come in via the upstairs main entrance. Being security, I was posted at the main lobby desk to assist EMS and other potential patients or guests to the ER. For some context, I was alone. Staffing sucks, especially my department. The main entrance is right next to the chapel, and at the end of the hall, opposite to the main hallway, is the lower rooms of the chapel, where priests and later OBGYN doctors would stay overnight. That's a whole other creepy area I have stories about. The chapel is a historic building that's connected to the modern hospital, built in the 18-something. It's closed to the public because an earthquake a few years later caused damage and the risk of the balcony detaching and collapsing. Only security, maintenance, and a few choice admins are allowed access. Anywho, I'm chilling at the desk, stupidly watching Tragic Tales, Abyssal, Detective, and the occasional The Paranormal Files, because I'm a very disturbed person. It's roughly 3:34 and there hasn't been another soul in sight for a good hour or two. I heard tapping coming from the hallway towards the chapel. Now this could have been anything. I'm seated beside a decorative water feature. The air circulation system isn't the quietest. and from somewhere within the gift shop, pharmacy, and coffee shop is a beep from an alarm system. But this was distinct tapping, like someone impatiently tapping their foot. It wasn't consistent, maybe 2 or 3 taps every few seconds. Then there was the rustling of papers. This is what pulled me away from my not-so-comfy chair. I rounded the corner, ready to throw hands, and found nobody. Absolutely nothing. I went back to the desk, but I was feeling too restless to sit, so I went out for a smoke break. I didn't want to go far from the entrance, so I sat on a bench in the little brick patio area. Out of sheer stupid curiosity, I shined my flashlight up at the top windows of the chapel, the stained glass ones that are where the services used to be held. My flashlight is maybe a little dimmer than the sun. I can seriously blind someone with it on its high setting. Nothing unusual, just the ornate panels depicting the apostles or whoever they are. I'm not religious anymore, definitely know nothing about Catholicism. I moved my beam to the back windows where the small corridor is behind the podium, the little area that has the hazardously narrow staircase leading down to the lower floor. And I saw movement, a shadow, but definitely human-shaped. Great, now I have to go inspect it. I've encountered homeless people who've entered through the crawl space below the chapel, so there was no way in hell I was going alone. I called my big bro in ICU who loves getting involved with security affairs. Big dude, 6'2" maybe, somewhere between 200 to 220 pounds, of very little fat and mainly muscle. Instant, yes. He meets me in the main lobby. We go into the chapel through the lower floor to walk through the rooms and exit through the congregation area. We don't find anything in the lower area as we're walking through the rows of pews upstairs. We both start to notice something. Fresh prints in the distance on the pews, like butt cheeks and handprints. Then we hear the tapping. It's a bit muffled. The floor has thin carpeting on it, but it's enough to scare even Big Bro. We leave immediately and I lock the doors behind us. I've never seen Big Bro scared like that. He's usually so gung-ho about stuff. I don't think I'll ever go in there by myself again. And I highly doubt Big Bro will return even in the daylight. I really wish I could post pics, but sadly I cannot. They were very distinct. Thankfully, last night is the only night I had to be up in the main lobby. I think I'll spend tonight in the ER where my worst fears are getting beaten up by the drunks and druggies. Whether it's a restless spirit, a trespasser hiding in the shadows, or something far more unsettling, the presence in that chapel was unmistakable. The faint tapping and handprints left their mark not only on the pews, but on the nerves of even the toughest security personnel. For the user and their big bro, the chapel remains a place where the living dare not linger alone, especially after the dark.
When this happened, I was 17 years old and had only been working as a social and healthcare assistant for about a year. I didn't have much experience with death back then, neither in my family, thankfully, nor in my job. I was working in a nursing home with 5 floors. The top floor was the dementia unit, where a very psychotic and severely demented resident lived, but that's a whole other story for another time. That winter, around Christmas, I was caring for 24 residents with a colleague. I had grown very close to one particular resident, a 99-year-old woman, full of warmth and spirit. She was set to turn 100 on December 24th, which is Christmas Eve where I'm from, the day we celebrate with family and tradition. I cared for her that evening, and everything seemed fine, until I suddenly felt very ill later that night and had to go home. It hit me out of nowhere. Luckily, a third colleague had shown up unexpectedly, even though she wasn't on the schedule. That allowed me to leave and rest. I came back to work the next day, December 25th, feeling completely fine again. That's when I was told that the woman I'd cared for had passed away peacefully in her sleep that night. It really touched me. I'd bonded with her in a way that felt different. I told my colleagues I wished to say my final goodbye, but the day became too busy. In our care system, You're not allowed to go in alone with someone who's passed. We always go in pairs, both for safety and respect. Later in the day, I'd offered to stay longer to help out. I was only 17 and honestly had nothing else going on. Those were the days. And then, something strange happened. We got a signal on our emergency call system. I looked down at the display automatically, trying to figure out which resident it was this time. And then, my stomach dropped. It was her number. The call came from her apartment, the woman who had passed away the night before. I showed the call to my colleague. We both froze for a moment. You see, when someone passes away, we prepare them with dignity and peace. We dress them in clothing chosen by them or the family. We always open a window, so the soul has a path to leave. We light a candle in the room, and we place the emergency call device loosely in their hands one last time. All of that had been done. We rushed upstairs. I unlocked the door and stepped inside, and there she was, still lying peacefully in bed. She looked so calm and so white. Her skin had taken on the soft, pale tone of fresh snow, like her blood had quietly turned to something light and still. A gentle kind of silence surrounded her, like time had paused, just for her to rest a little longer. We soon noticed the window had been closed, probably by accident, by a colleague who didn't realize. So we opened it again, relit the candle, and stood quietly for a moment. I finally got to say goodbye. It was a little awkward with my colleague standing behind me, but I was deeply grateful to have that moment. I hope she's out there somewhere, singing all the songs she loved so dearly, with a heart light as snow and a soul free as wind. A memory I'll carry with me, always.
And that ends episode 63, campers. If you think you caught something moving in the corner of your eye, you probably did. Just don't try to confirm it. Until we meet again, stay by the fire and let the shadows pass on their own.
As the night gets longer and the darkness creeps in, with the eerie silence broken only by whispering wind, come gather round the fire, the flickering flames, and hear the tales of the spooky and the strange. A chill up your back, a shiver up your spine. You'll be haunted by the things that you find. Legends will unfold and stories will be told at the Scaredy Campfire, for only